Everybody, come quick. Grab your phone, grab your tablet, grab your laptop. I have good news. We're going to talk about it on today's Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Good news coming right up.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, my goodness. Tom Callahan, former NHL voice, and Robyn Leaño, longtime team analyst. We feel like we've been the bearers of bad news on this Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast for so darn long now. It's exciting to finally have some good news as it relates to the Utah Hockey Club injuries. Robyn, we're going to go down the list and talk about the impact throughout this show, but how nice is it to finally bring some good news to people?
It really is nice because we had maybe like a couple comments here and there sprinkled throughout our YouTube comments. We were like, you guys are just so pessimistic all the time. And I felt bad because I was like, no, I don't want to be. But the injury is just, they bring you down. But when you get some good news coming out of the injury front, it feels nice. And it feels like, oh, wait, there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
It is. And I don't think it's a train. I hope it's not a train. But I guess we're going to find out, right? We're going to get there together. So this episode brought to you in part by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Robyn, I think where I want to get started is probably we've been talking about the defense, all the injuries on the defense. And I want to say something real quick. It's not that we've been pessimistic. We're just delivering the news.
Yeah.
The fact that the news has not been positive is not us. You know what I mean?
I know.
I
have
nothing to do with it.
We do the best we can, and we try to. We always try to put a positive spin on this show. Just sometimes that bad news just hits, and you guys need to hear it. I mean, you guys want to hear it because you want to know what's going on. Yeah, of course. You guys are all Utah Hockey Club diehard fans at this point. If you're an everydayer of this show, you are a diehard UHC fan.
Yes, absolutely. And if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, now's the time to do it. Please do that no matter whether you're listening, watching on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, click the bell so you get the notifications every time we drop a new episode or some of the live shows that are going to be coming up here as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the first and most important thing, I think, because it's the closest to being a reality, is the fact that Marino has been in a non-contact jersey at practice for a while, been skating out there. Now, for those of you who don't know, so when a player is on the ice in practice in the NHL and they wear a jersey color that no one else is wearing, usually it's something bright like yellow, orange, red, whatever color is not being used by the other lines, that's on purpose. That is, I call it the don't touch me jersey, because you are not to bump into that player. You're not to make contact with that player. The non-contact jersey is meant to be a warning to everybody else. Now, the players out there skating, trying to get their conditioning back, don't run into that player. Well, guess what? John Marino has shed his don't touch me jersey and is now practicing at a regular pace with the team. Andre Tourigny said at practice, not this week, but Robyn, that means potentially as soon as 6 or 7 days from now, we could, for the first time, have Marino in a Utah Hockey Club jersey.
That is really exciting. And I know like a few weeks ago, I think the goal was to get him out on the ice or get him ready before February officially hit. That was kind of, I think, even when it was first announced, when the first like, hey, here's the actual timeline. You and I were talking about it, right? He says, okay, so it looks like Marino is kind of going to be January, maybe even February. It seems like that's pretty accurate. We're getting closer and closer, but you didn't even feel like we were close until we finally got the update from Andre Tourigny.
Well, and you never know. right? The way this year's
There could
gone.
there could have been setbacks. There could have been something, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what now?
And we're going to talk about Sean Durzi in a minute. We will get to that. But really, the big thing with Marino getting closer, and the guys who are out are Marino, Durzi, Lamoureux, and Bortuzzo are the 4 defensemen that are out right now. And certainly that's a huge gap. But we don't know, out of everybody who I just mentioned, Robyn, the question mark is Marino, because we just haven't seen him ever play a game for Utah Hockey Club. So this is really the big mystery bag out of all of this. What's he going to be like when he comes back? He's missed a lot of time. How far behind is he going to be? How long will it take him to catch up to that NHL pace? Because I don't expect him in game 1, game 2, maybe even game 3 to really be on board with the pace and being able to munch all the minutes he's going to by the time, say, March rolls around.
Yeah, I mean, like that. There's a lot of players have a they'll have that reset period after coming back from an injury, and it's no surprise, right? No surprise, because they had to come back at the pace of a new team and everything like that. There are some players, and it's very rare, where you see them get injured, and then they come back and it looks like they haven't skipped a beat. Those are a special breed of players. Clayton Keller, I'm looking at you because, like, if you guys know that whole deal from a couple seasons ago, that recovery was phenomenal. But there still is a little bit of that recovery period, especially if you're a player who you don't know this team, you haven't played a game with them before. So with John Marino, that's what we're getting, right? We're all have a question mark. We don't know what he's going to look like. He doesn't know how he's going to look like on game day. Is there a chance he doesn't? It looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. I wouldn't count on it, but I mean, it would be sure nice to see, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, but I also don't expect them to throw him into the deep end of the pool either.
Of course not. They're going to ease him in.
Yeah,
because
that's not.
You don't want to risk anything to any major setbacks. You want him to be like, all right, let's see how you do.
Yeah, let's just baby step this, especially because he has not played at all. I mean, this is just, but it's hard not to be a little giddy, isn't it? About oh my goodness, he could actually be in the lineup relatively soon.
Take a look at the conversation you and I had preseason when it came to John Marino. We have high expectations, right? We had high expectations going into the season. Now those expectations, granted, Tom, are diminished a little bit because of said injury, because of how long he's been out and everything. But I'd like to say that it's still a little bit there. There's still a little bit of me being, I'd love to see how he does.
And the interesting thing is, since the acquisition of Olli Mata, I think Mata and Välimäki have played so well together that you really kind of like that pair. So I don't know that I'm in a huge hurry. We might see Marino and Sergachev,
which is what I've been wanting at the beginning of the season.
I mean, I did want to see how it was going to go, but I also, like, the more I looked into Marino's advanced stats, the more I felt like, okay, he really does belong in the 3-4. I think when he moved up against the 1-2 kind of upper level competition, he struggled a little, but he's also young and growing, right, as a defenseman. So if you bring him in, and let's just say you still have that Välimäki-Mata pairing in the middle, that gives you the ability to do a couple of things. Number one, you could dress 7D, which has happened before, if you can scrape up 7D. And rotate him in and out and get him used to some time and only play him 5-on-5. You don't have to throw him on special teams and put him on a 5-6, or you can go 6 defensemen, put him on a 5-6, and then just not expose him to special teams, or do the 5-6 minutes and put him on a little bit of penalty kill. Maybe on the power play, but the power play right now I wouldn't mess with, quite honestly.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that latter seems to be like a pretty fair way to do it. That way you're not putting him in too many minutes, getting him special teams time, because he needs that, right? Because look, Marino is, and we talked about it, right? He is like, and the reason why I wanted to see Marino alongside Sergachev is because that is a pairing in which you kind of ideally you have your offensive minded D in puck moving in Sergachev, and you have more of a defensive-minded shutdown guy in Marino. You kind of want those because we've talked about, especially this season, we've talked about the amount of missteps that Sergachev has had, and all of a sudden, whoops, puck's going the other way, and it looks like a 2-on-0 situation. With Marino in, ideally, again, because we don't know, especially if you ease him in, it should be good. At least the hope is wherever you put him in, whether it's that 3-4 spot or the 5-6 spot, that he's able to be, kind of ease into that shutdown role again.
Yep, and that's, I think, for the Utah Hockey Club, just to be able to have him back early enough to get healthy, and really the first next major milestone, if you follow that, will probably be trade deadline. So to have him healthy and in full swing by then, I think is going to be huge, because it may allow you to be a little bit more confident with your, soft sell or your soft buy, whatever position you're in at that point. So, all right. Well, so that's one name down. Sean Durzi is another name I want to talk about, and why Andre Tourigny said sometimes we have to hold this guy back, plus Connor Ingram update. And then we're going to talk about an update of our own too at the end of it all. So why don't we do that right after this? And today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. I mean, check out what FanDuel's got to offer. The NFL playoffs, wildcard round, starts this weekend. There are so many excellent matchups out there, and things that I think you'll be able to find some favorable odds out there. You know what? Keep an eye on the weather for games, because that can also help you. So check the weather forecast. I mean, don't just trust that you're going to have sunshine, blue skies, and a field that's not covered in snow where some of these games are being played. Keep an eye on that stuff. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Robyn, one defenseman down, a couple more things to talk about. Sean Durzi was out there taking shots at practice and was, zipping around for the early part of practice, as I mentioned, taking some shots, which is good to see for a guy who's trying to come back off a shoulder injury, but then went over to the other side of the oval, skated by himself for the rest. So he's not ready for contact, but he is out there a little bit with the teammates. That is a big step forward. But Andre Tourigny said after practice, almost with a wry grin and an eye roll, we have to hold that guy back, meaning Durzi, because he's one of those players who just wants to charge back in there at 110%, even when he's 35%.
That's a hockey player for you, right? That's the kind they are. Sometimes they're just that crazy. And look, I give them credit for wanting to be that crazy. Even I say, as someone who plays recreational level hockey, if I get a bruiser somewhere and I'm like, and all of a sudden I feel slower, I'm like, no, I'm good. Don't worry about it. But yeah, no, Durzi really wants to come back, and it's a good sign that he's starting to skate a little bit with the team, get some moments. I think it's good, Tom, that they have the Olympic Oval has, the actual ice rink, for the hockey games, as well as the speed skating rink. From my understanding, that's kind of like where Durzi went off to. It's like, hey, let's go. You go to the speed skating track, whatever. It's like, go to the speed skating track and do some stick handling work. That's what he did, and he just needs to, figure out a pace. And I think the team needs to just make sure he sticks to that pace so he doesn't rush in too early. But it's a good sign. All right, I think a lot of us were worried maybe we might not see him for the rest of the season. Maybe it's still a possibility. We still might not see him, but we still need to. I feel like this is the right step of potentially seeing him, hopefully this later on.
I also think, Robyn, part of why they need to hold him back and save him from himself is, did they not do that with Bortuzzo? And I don't know the answer to that, but did Robert Bortuzzo say, I'm good enough? I'm good enough. I could play. Let's go. I could play. And then he goes out and gets hurt again. That would make me a lot more gun shy if I were making those decisions medically for my players.
Let alone one of your top 2 defensemen.
Right. And you know
Right?
what's crazy? I didn't realize, like, I don't know why I thought this wouldn't be the case, but Durzi only played 4 games. I feel like he played more than that, but he only played 4 games.
Because he made a big impact. Like, in those 4 games was what, like, that was what, a 3-1 start? Like,
yeah, I mean, it just, I don't know. It's crazy. And yeah, it was a great start for the team. But wow, I was kind of surprised when I saw that. So again, getting healthier is good. Not rushing the players is better, because here's the other thing. They're not in a playoff spot right now. You will often hear players say, or at least coaches say about a player, well, if it were the playoffs, he could go. If it were the Stanley Cup final, that guy would be out there. But Robyn, it's not.
yeah,
They're not in a wild card spot, let alone a higher playoff spot. And no matter where they are, it's January.
yep, exactly. That's the big difference, because a lot of you guys are, you're like, who listens, you've probably been hockey fans for a long time. If you're a newer hockey fan, you don't know how this works. But I'll explain it anyways. And Tom, you know this because you've got your fair share of covering the NHL and being an NHL play-by-play guy. But there's playoff teams where, like, let's say they make a really deep run. Let's say they make it to the conference finals and they come out clock or clean out day. It's like, oh yeah, this guy had a broken foot. That guy had an ACL injury. This guy had a separated shoulder, but they were skating on it because, you know what? It was the playoffs, and what mattered is if we can get that win. We don't know that because they don't want to say anything because, oh God, that would have been bad look. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
And that's the playoffs though. And the good thing is it's January. This team is in a situation where, like, they're not rushing to try to make a playoff spot. So they're like, all right, what happens. Let's keep it at a safe pace. We don't want to harm, let's say, for example, we don't want to harm the career of Sean Durzi, and we lock him into this big contract. All of a sudden he can't go for the rest of his career.
Right. And not that you think that's the case, but here's the problem. Is some injuries are recurring injuries. High ankle sprains can be easy recurring injuries, and unfortunately, shoulder injuries can be easily recurring injuries, like groins with goaltenders, groins, hips, and knees. Not so much knees these days with goaltenders. It tends to be hips and groins are the big problems with goalies.
Yeah, that checks out.
So, but that's the world we live in. They are easily injured again, and once your shoulder pops out, the next time it pops out, it's just going to be worse. That's how it goes.
That you reminded me, Tom, of a roommate I had my freshman year of college at the U of A, where this kid goes out and plays basketball, right? And they separate their shoulder in, like, orientation week, right? They get in the sling. Couple of weeks later, they're out of the sling. They feel better. Like, yeah, let's go back into playing basketball again. And guess what? They separate their shoulder again, and it keeps happening because they never, like, fully recover, and just because it's a recurring injury. And I'm like, dude, you gotta stop.
Hey, not for nothing, but why don't you let that thing heal? So, and that's kind of what they're trying to do with Durzi here, is just get in front of it and be like, hey, you'll be back in due time. And that's exactly what they want. Same thing with Connor Ingram, who is now in Tucson on a conditioning assignment. And want to tell you what Andre Tourigny had to say about that. Plus, Robyn and I have a couple thoughts we want to share with you. So stick around.
And today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best things is taking a look at their subscription tracker. Guys, I've been able to, get rid of those and get rid of some services I didn't really need, or maybe there was a service or an app or whatever, like I didn't know how to cancel it. Rocket Money did that and helped me. They're like, hey, we'll do that for you. Don't worry about it. We'll track down these people for you, and we'll say, hey, cancel the subscription. They don't want it. It really helped me. Plus, with their goals feature, it's allowed me to really set money aside for my future, focus on saving for, let's say, hey, you know what? Not this next summer, maybe the following summer, I want to travel to Mexico or Costa Rica or Iceland and get some vacation out there. Rocket Money will know exactly how to help allow me to set money aside, get that money into savings, and know how I can budget well so I can achieve that goal down the road. Cancel your unordered subscriptions and reach your financial goals with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
All right. So as we come back here for our final segment of today's show, Connor Ingram in Tucson, Robyn, on a conditioning assignment, and you and I have both, number one, been in Tucson, covered the AHL team, but the points that Andre Tourigny made at practice today, I think bear repeating. In the American Hockey League, you have the ability to have longer practices. You have a little bit more opportunity to have one-on-one work and instruction, whereas the NHL, and especially the way he runs the team, they don't have long practices. They get out, they get on, they get off, and especially the way they kind of play every other day, where the AHL gravitates towards weekends as much as it can. Probably give Ingram a pretty good chance to get his skates back under him. There's no timetable for when he does come back, and furthermore, when he does come back, there's no answer for what's going to happen with the goalie rotation. But let's not put the cart before the horse here.
Absolutely. And that's, to me, I think that's why I'm glad the American Hockey League, has its, its place in this professional hockey world. It's for those development and conditioning. If you ask anybody what it's for, that's what those are the two biggest things: development and conditioning. And if you've been out if you've been injured for a decent amount of time, especially if you're a goalie, like, you're allowed to get that kind of time out there. You're allowed to get that time down there, get some conditioning, get those longer practices in, get the one-on-one with some trainers and be like, all right, this is what we need. This is what we need to focus on. Let's see how you're doing. Let's see how we can move you towards getting back to the NHL level. I mean, and again, I'd be in no rush, but I see the conditioning stint traditionally lasts a week, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's really, it depends on games being played. So you can only appear in so many games. You can skate, I think, till you're blue in the face pretty much. But yeah, generally you see players there for a week, maybe two. Goaltenders, again, and every goaltender is different. Are they going to throw them down there and say skate for 2 weeks and then play 3 games and come back up? Are they going to say skate for a couple of days, play a game, see how it feels, and we'll figure out where you are? That's kind of the object here. But the other thing is too, so the point with all these injured players, Robyn, is not only have they missed significant time, they've missed practice time, they've missed game time, and you can't replicate game time in a practice no matter how hard you try. So there's so much that they have to catch up on just to get in shape, and then get that muscle memory back, and then get the muscle memory firing at NHL game speed. So everybody's different, the way they reacclimate, but hopefully Ingram goes down there and gets, a week or two of good practice in.
And I think that, and again, it's especially said for goaltenders. Because with a skater, I mean, it's a little bit easier. Like, you can focus on, increasing your speed in the skating practice and focus on a lot of skating and drills. With goalies, it's very different. I know you probably say this as as someone who's kind of played goalie in some capacity previously, Tom.
Yeah, and I can definitely tell you that sometimes it takes a little rust shaking. Um, so that is absolutely true, Robin, and it's not the easiest thing to do. But I will tell, at least as far as me, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know once the puck hits me a few times, I feel infinitely better. You just do. Once you get hit a couple of times, once you make a couple of saves, and you just your mind just goes, okay, we're back into this flow now.
It
All right,
just
we're
clicks
good.
back in your head, just like, oh yeah, that's right. This is how I do it.
Yes, it does. And then things start to feel more familiar as opposed to awkward. And that's a nice feeling when that kicks in. So I'm hoping for Ingram that happens sooner than later.
How you know what? This is actually a good question to ask, Tom. Since you have that bit of more expertise, what does a goalie do? You know, when they're conditioning. You know, when there's not when they're practicing. What and let's say they're not on the ice with their teammates, whatever. What are they doing?
Well, and it really depends on what the injury is you're rehabbing from. But a lot of what you do is technical work. So it's footwork, it's work with your skates, working on things as simple as just getting left to right, right to left, getting up and down, but making sure that you haven't developed bad habits in the meantime, that you haven't developed a slouch to your butterfly. So instead, when you drop, you want to stay up, stay square, and you're not hunching, because then this is when pucks start going here. So
Right.
you don't want to start doing that. You want to stay tall. You want to be square when you're moving laterally, making sure you're pushing well, and then just coming out on your angles. I mean, as simple as, being from the top of the crease to having to adjust to a 20 or 30-foot pass, making sure that you're still making the correct movements in the crease, that it keeps you centered to the shooter. So those are all little technical things you can work on that don't require a ton of physical effort, but can be very tedious if you then work in the repetition. That's when you start getting your conditioning back as well. So there are a lot of things you can work on, but those just getting rid of any bad habits you might have picked up, or making sure you didn't pick up any bad habits, a lot of technical stuff.
Awesome. That really is good to know. Kind of helps me understand. I think it helps a lot of us understand, likely what we could see Ingram be going through as he goes to his conditioning stint in Tucson and figures out, get back to the rhythm before we eventually see him back with the Utah Hockey Club.
Absolutely. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully he's back sooner than later. It'll be interesting to see what they are going to do then once they get back with the 3-man. And Andre Tourigny doesn't have an answer for that yet. I guess we'll jump off that cliff when we come to it. So all right, Robyn, I want to talk about what we want to talk about, because we have a couple of things that we want to talk about. So I'm going to let you lead on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is something it's funny because Tom and I actually both had apparently people ask us questions, right? First and foremost, if you are a returning fan of this show, or by returning, I mean you were a fan of the Locked On Coyotes show and have been or just a quote dormant Coyotes fan, but choosing to follow these people. You have probably asked either me or Tom if we have any plans on returning to cover the Coyotes anytime soon. And Tom, I think you and I both had the comments. It's like, it's a decision that we can't make right now. It's like, no, I don't. We're happy here, right? We love you guys in Utah. You guys have been great.
Absolutely. It's been fun to cover this organization. It's a team that is interesting every single day of the year. There's something to talk about, and it's a brand new and very exciting market. And watching a franchise take its baby steps in a brand new city is awesome. Salt Lake itself is a city that's on the rise. So there's a lot to like. But here's really the other side of this reality, is that even if Gary Bettman shows up in Phoenix tomorrow and says there's going to be a team here again, here's the group, here's where the building's going, that building is 3, 4, 5 years away.
Yep. And
you're not getting a team until you get a building.
The report that we saw is only like, hey, this is the steps that are being made for a team to return later. It's not saying it will return. It's they're working on it. And look, I'm glad they're working on it. I will I will support the team. I will support, I'll be like, yeah, sure, absolutely. I'll be glad that NHL hockey can come back to Arizona.
And the league wants to go back.
Oh yeah, of
They're
course
very clear about
back.
that.
They want to come back. This is, I still live here, and I firmly think that this is a great place for hockey. But again, at the end of the day, Tom, you and I love it here, covering the Utah team, and it feels, it feels nice. Obviously, seeing the growth of this show has been amazing, right? And for us to commit to anything further than that, let's say 5 years down the road, that's a long time. We can't commit to something longer term when we're focused on the now. We're focused on what we're doing here. So I want to say this, and you can probably agree with me, Tom. This is probably the first and only time we will be addressing this on this show.
Yes.
So the only reason why we're bringing it up is because we've been asked, because there was the report that came out yesterday from Craig Morgan about the county of Maricopa being setting up a group to kind of like to look into bringing them back.
And that's an exploratory phase thing.
Yes.
That is a long way down the road. That's like saying to me, Tom, in 5 years, I'm going to offer you a job. A lot's going to change in 5 years. I don't even know if it's still going to be a good job by the time 5 years passes. So, it's just, I don't know. We'll see. I hope Phoenix gets a team back. I think it's a great place. I really do. I think, the Valley deserves hockey. A lot of awesome fans there. Fantastic media market. It is a major league market. I would love to see that happen. But Robyn, again, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. If there is news, we can always talk about the news. But as far as you and I are concerned, this is where we are.
We are Utah hockey analysts and podcasters, and we will remain that for the foreseeable future.
Amen.
Any final thoughts before we close things off, Tom?
I'm just excited. I'm excited to have good news to share. So make sure you click the subscribe button, because we might have more good news soon too. I hope we
do. I think so. I think we'll definitely have some more good news coming up. But if that's the case, I think that will be it for this episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a like, a comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube and really everywhere else. Like if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell as well so you're notified every time a new episode drops. And if you're anywhere else, especially if you're someone like on Spotify, you can also hit auto download. So every episode automatically gets downloaded to your phone when you first wake up. So like, let's say you go to a place where all of a sudden you might not have Wi-Fi. You can just hit play and all of a sudden, and you don't have to worry about it. It's there on your phone, ready to go. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and X at LO_NHL Utah. We're also on Blue Sky at Locked On Utah Hockey. I'm personally at Robyn_Leaño on X and at Robyn Icetime on Blue Sky. And Tom, where can we find you?
I am at Tom Talks on Blue Sky, at Callahan on Air on Twitter. And yes, if anybody wants to talk hockey, shoot some questions, even if you have questions for the show, anything you send to us, we might even tackle it on a future topic on the show.
Absolutely. And we always like to interact with you guys. So even if it's just this, a comment to us saying how much you love us and how much you love the show, we love all that. We love that feedback, and whether even whether it's positive or negative. If you don't like something about our show, let us know, and we'll listen to you. We're flexible. We're willing to adjust if we really need to.
We are,
of course. But once again, thanks everyone for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.